This podcast is brought to you by the Heldridge Hotel, New Brunswick's only 4-star hotel and a preferred hotel of Rutgers football fans. The Heldridge helps you make the most of your game day weekend, providing premium accommodations in the cultural heart of downtown New Brunswick. Restaurants, bars, theaters, parks, museums, and more are only steps away. Whether you're traveling alone or with a large group, book your stay at the Heldridge and make the most of your game day weekend. Visit theheldridge.com today.
Now, 2 Pigeons and Coach Prime bemoaning the fact you can stream DirecTV satellite-free.
These humans get the biggest college football games on DirecTV,
and we don't even get a satellite dish.
Enough squawking.
It's Coach Prime.
Bring it in. Sure, they could get all that college football without a dish, but you still got your passion, your drive, your resolve, your
incredible career as a football icon?
No, that's me.
Stream the biggest college football games. No satellite dish. Visit DirecTV.com.
From NJ.com and the Star Ledger, welcome to the Rutgers Rant, your one-stop podcast for the Scarlet Knights, with your hosts Steve Politti and Rutgers insiders Brian Fonseca and Pat Lenny. Let's start shopping.
Okie dokie, everybody. Welcome back to the Rutgers Rant, our Wisconsin's pick pod. The Badgers coming to town, Wisconsin. Very exciting. All right, so trying to get a grasp on this Wisconsin team is interesting. They haven't looked good, but then you look who they've lost to, and it's not a bad 3-2 when you've lost to at USC and to Alabama. But people are losing their you-know-what up there in Cheeseland. Column in the Daily Cardinal, the campus paper, Badgers football is stuck in mediocrity. Where do they go from here? I love it. I love when the student journalists get salty. You Targum kids gotta get on that when stuff happens. What do you guys think? I mean, obviously they've recruited at a decently high level. They've got a good coach. What's the reality here?
So off kilter, it's not even funny. They have 33 straight winning seasons. It's like a mediocrity. Oh my terrible. God.
Hate this.
I hate it so much.
30, is that right? 33 winning seasons.
23. Sorry, 23.
Man,
that's great. They're spoiled over there in Madison. But I guess that's what happens when you win 23 straight winning seasons. You get to 3-2, you start getting a little nervy. Listen, I think this is not a great Wisconsin team, certainly not to the level that they've set expectations for in the past quarter century. So I can understand the antsiness. And I hear your point about the 2 opponents they lost to being good. USC just lost at Minnesota, so they're not, a titan of a team. They're not even a top 20, top 5 team anymore. And Alabama just lost at Vanderbilt. You're telling me Vanderbilt has a better road environment than Wisconsin?
It's still not a bad loss, is what the point being. Right? Alabama's going to be in the playoff.
Very competitive in both games, very physical. Right.
Yeah.
That's the thing that's not going to change about Wisconsin. Right.
Right. Yeah.
They're going to line it up and try to run it down your throat, even if Fickle wants to play in the spread.
Well, that's the interesting part. Like that, it seems like there is a true identity problem up there, which I think is really interesting. Trying to bring the air raid, trying to modernize this. I don't think people up there want modern. They want, the big boys. They want to run. They want, Ron Dane, Jonathan Taylor. They want to be this physical team. And the thing that sticks out to me watching them when they line up at 4th and 1 and shotgun, something here in Piscataway we wouldn't be surprised by, but they went nuts up there. I mean, it's just, and they didn't get the 4th, they didn't convert the 4th down. I don't know. Is there something to be said for a coach for not being in tune with what the fans expect from the program?
Yes and no.
Okay.
I read the same article as you in The Athletic. It was tremendous. The Athletic, maybe you didn't. The Athletic quoted former Wisconsin players and even sent in a message to Barry Alvarez about that 4th and 1 situation. And Barry Alvarez said, listen, I would have done a QB sneak there, but I'm not saying what he did was wrong. That's just what I would have done. Because he's the most
I love it.
Level-headed guy. I think Barry Alvarez is great. Besides the point. Is it an identity crisis? Not if it was working, people wouldn't be complaining, right? So maybe that's the big issue there.
Right.
Rutgers. I actually just wrote this story this morning, so it's fresh on the top of my mind. Like in short yardage situations, Rutgers and Wisconsin won't mash you like they used to. Was my headline. That's kind of it. And Greg went into like a whole 1-minute explanation about why Ethan Kaliakmanis won't be under center this season, and the philosophy behind that. And Wisconsin's going through the same exact thing. It's just their offensive approach. It clearly worked at Cincinnati, right? They got Luke Fickell and Phil Longo got that program up to playing a high level, and they're trying to do it at Wisconsin. And I think change is hard, right? Especially when you've done something so well. So Wisconsin fans maybe don't see the big picture and they see the immediate results, but I think you got to give them the benefit of the doubt. They've clearly proven that their system works.
Right. Two things. The Wisconsin fans had won 10 games per season, pounding the ball down your throat with guys that are just bigger than you on both sides of the line of scrimmage. And fans were just thinking, this is great and all, but we like to go to the next level, and we can't do it playing caveman football. Well, now they're playing modern football, and they're not as good as they used to be. So I think it's kind of the devil, the grass is always greener on the other side kind of thing. But to Wisconsin's credit this year, or I guess to kind of explain the issues, they've lost their starting quarterback, who frankly wasn't that good to begin with. And they lost their starting running back, their best rusher, who left the team indefinitely because he just can't stop getting injured. And that obviously plays a factor. But I do think it's, again, Rutgers fans probably had the same dilemma with Greg Schiano's old style of running Ray Rice 37 times a game and passing the ball short. And they probably would love to see a spread offense, but this is a high-level example of what could happen if you don't execute it well. Things can kind of fall off the rails and you lose kind of the secret to your success for so long.
Pat, for people who didn't read that story, I'm interested in that. What was Greg Schiano's explanation on the fourth and ones, 3rd and 1, no lineup under center? Because people, I was one of them on Twitter on the goal line in Nebraska, wondering why. Is there any situation where they would do it? You say no.
There's, except for the tush push, that's the only time that Rutgers goes under center. Mm-hmm. And the reasoning is that's just the system they run, and they put in so much effort to understanding how to do the read option, how to read the edge, how to read the linebackers, how to make these intricate reads to whether to hand it off or keep it, that plays a big role in the way they practice. And once you master that system, you're not going to go back and change it. So it's what they've chosen to do and chosen to master. And that's why this whole philosophy of Rutgers is going to be better in year 2 under Shiraka, because they know the system. That's a big part of it. And his other point was, well, if you line up under center and the quarterback runs, he actually did this demonstration for us at the podium, which was great. So I will try to replicate that. So if the quarterback takes the ball from under center, turns around, takes a step or two to hand it to the running back, his argument was that you are basically essentially getting the ball at the same spot if you're the running back, whether you're lined up standing next to the quarterback or whether you're taking it from a handoff position. So it was an interesting response. And big picture, he was just talking about this is the evolution of college football. We've bought into that. You don't see fullbacks on the field except for when Nebraska lined up in the goal line to beat Rutgers. So
don't see fullbacks in the field except, last week. But yes, I hear what he's saying.
Yeah. I heard what he was saying too, and I get it. But I don't understand why you can't have a jumbo package at the goal line. That's what every professional team does. That's what Nebraska did to Rutgers. I think I understand the offensive philosophy, but I think at this level, when you have to be multiple in some sort of fashion.
My only rebuttal is it didn't click until you were just saying it, right? Yes, the ball is being given to the running back maybe at the same point, but when it's out of the shotgun, it's at a standstill versus when it's under center, the running back has some momentum when he catches the ball, when he gets the ball, right? So in theory, he'd have some more force. I don't know how much of a difference that makes, but that would be my rebuttal to what I would say was a pretty good explanation from Greg Schiano. But yes, I think that if you're at the 1 yard line, every kid has played under center in football at every level. It's not that complicated to snap the ball, hand it off to your running back and tell him to run as hard as you can into the line. Yeah. But we're rehashing the same things over and over again. It's been a week. We're on to Wisconsin.
No, but it's interesting to hear his answer.
It's interesting to hear it from the Wisconsin perspective because they're literally arguing about the same exact thing at the same exact moment. Yeah, it's crazy.
It's very funny. All right. So, Brian, you alluded to it a little bit. Backups at both quarterback and running back. Backups look pretty good. I don't know if you're judging this, but I get it. Braden Locke against Purdue. I know it's Purdue. 20 of 31, 357 yards. That's 11 and a half yards, 3 touchdowns, 69 yarder. All right. I mean, decent quarterback play. Running back Tywee, is that how you pronounce it? Walker, Tywee Walker. Don't know.
A lot of guys. They got a lot of guys.
Yeah, he's got 57 carries, 6 touchdowns. Is that just Purdue? Do we think, or perhaps they've got some depth there at Wisconsin?
Purdue stinks. Purdue might be as bad as Chris Ash's Rutgers teams. Purdue stinks. Okay, so I take everything that happened against Purdue with a massive grain of salt.
Mm-hmm. Okay, fair.
Yeah, I can't wait to get to the picks because this is going to be one of the best ones.
Still 52-6.
I'm impressed by that. I was impressed the day it happened. I think people are sleeping on Wisconsin, and so I can't wait to get to the end here.
Ooh, how exciting!
I think Nebraska scored 28 points against Purdue in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, but it was 3-0 at halftime.
It was 3-0 at halftime, but it was.
Yeah, they scored 28 points in one quarter.
But I will say, if you were making a list, you're right. If you're making a list of the coach most likely to get fired, I think the Purdue program is the one that is probably in the crosshairs. I've been reading Greg Doyle out in Indianapolis went to blowtorch to Purdue. Certainly seems like the 18th. Sure, I would say the 18th best team in the Big Ten. I think at that point you'd be right about that. By a mile, probably. Yeah.
I don't even know who the 17th best team in the Big Ten is, but they are, stratospheres ahead of where Purdue is. I can't say this enough. They stink.
All right. So what did we learn? So is Wisconsin? So is there anything you think you take? So you were just dismissing it that Wisconsin is not good. You think?
No. What I'm saying is I don't think Wisconsin is a juggernaut offensive team with this backup quarterback and running back because they scored 52 points on the School of the Blind. Right. I just don't. I don't take a blowout win over Purdue as much proof of that. I think it's probably good. Right. I mean, it's good that they weren't bad. They did what they had to do. But I don't think this is probably the worst Wisconsin team in certainly since Rutgers has been in the Big Ten. No doubt about that. And I think this is an opportunity, a big time opportunity for Rutgers to get back on track in an emphatic fashion.
Yeah. And you mentioned that it's funny. The 5-0 Wisconsin's 5-0 against Rutgers. Just a couple of years ago, 2021, it was 52-3. Kind of forget that it was a big gap. And it's the scores aren't what's the yawning gap for me. It's been watching those games where you're like, oh my God, you look at them when they line up against each other and it's just, you tell right away who's going to win those games, physical mismatches. That's not going to be the case this week. I'd be very surprised, Pat, if that is the case.
Well, it's really interesting because you go back to last year, that's the Wisconsin team that I look at. Year one of Fickell. What was this new look Wisconsin team going to be, right? And Rutgers was right there with them, especially defensively. It was probably one of those games that Rutgers defense was certainly good enough to win, but the offense threw that killer pick six and offense just could not move the ball. It was the we're not there yet game for Shiano, right? Right. Yep. They were very close. It was one of those ones you left like, maybe we could have had it. So I think the gap was closed last year, and I think this year Rutgers has a good shot, like Brian said, to take advantage of maybe not the most dominant Wisconsin team, but I still think the bread and butter of what Wisconsin does is still very much there. Those big guys up front are not going away. The guy Ricardo Hallman that had the pick six last year is still one of the best players in the secondary in the entire conference. They're still good players. There's plenty of depth, as you can see. They're down to their. Tyler Van Dyke was a transfer quarterback, so Braden Locke was right in the mix to start there anyway. It's not like a team that's just fallen off the face of the earth, right? Like this is what I was talking about on Monday, elevating the program to a level that competes with every team in the Big Ten, right? This may not be Wisconsin's best. This is like Jonathan Taylor's not running out of the tunnel. Ron Dane's not running out of the tunnel, but there's still a program that's going to go to a bowl game this year. And this is supposed to be Rutgers' best team, right? So that's the step. That's
such a great point. Yep. Such a great point. All right.
I would say they were like this last year, these teams. Wisconsin was here, Rutgers was here. I would say this happened. Rutgers got better, Wisconsin got worse. And I think at worst they're equal and Rutgers might have passed them.
Right.
That's great. That's a great point.
All right. Offensively, and when Rutgers has the ball, I do think it's to be the game where Rutgers gets back to its identity. We talked about it a lot last week, for kind of forgetting about Kyle Monungai after what was a promising first quarter. This is a stat. I don't know if it's true. It's a stat I saw somewhere. Scarlet Knights have lost the last 13 times that they failed to hit 100 yards rushing. Look it up. Sounds plausible. They got to hit. They need to get that from Kyle Monangai. They need to establish that early. One thing I do worry, and we can't losing the left guard can't be the end of your team's hopes. Do you think the offensive line is going to be better this week? You wrote about a little bit about how they're going to handle that issue going forward, and will the running game be back, you think?
Yes, for two reasons. One, Taj White will have had 71 snaps against the best front he'll face all season, so he has that experience behind him. He'll have another week of working with the line at the position, getting coaching from Pat Flaherty, so I imagine he'll feel at least slightly more comfortable in the position. More importantly, they're playing a much less daunting defensive line. Nebraska had, again, maybe the best rush defense Rutgers will face all season. They're the only team in FBS football that has yet to give up a rushing touchdown all year, and Wisconsin is very much not that. They're not this great wall that they used to be on the defensive line. Very mediocre run defense if you look at the stats. And I think this is going to be a game where Kyle Monangai and Samuel Brown have a chance to get back to what they were early in the season and maybe even run all over them. And I think they have a chance to have their best game of the season yet. I mean, not counting Howard and Akron, obviously. I think this is, if there is a matchup that Rutgers has to take advantage of, I would say it's their rush offense against Wisconsin's rush defense.
Pat, you agree?
I do. Absolutely. I think Brian's absolutely right with that being the Rutgers' strength, Wisconsin's weakness. There's no doubt about it. I'm just thinking that Rutgers defense made a nice transition last week, really played its best game. I think Wisconsin's, despite what we're saying about the spread and all that, they still have a great offensive line and it's still their bread and butter. And they're still going to try to come out and be the more physical team. And Rutgers can't let that happen. It's got to be on the defense to punch them back. And right, I thought what you saw last week from that defense, especially in the second half, was exactly the light switch that kind of went off, right? Like you got the pressure, you finished the sacks, you held Nebraska to 1.9 yards per play in the second half. Everything kind of clicked for that defense for once. So
right,
you need to come out strong defensively and kind of set the tone. I think really it's more important that Rutgers is able to not let Wisconsin establish its identity.
All right. I have a note here on special teams. Did we ask the question? And by that, I mean, of course, punt and kick returns, the lack thereof. Did we ask why? Have we gotten to Greg Schiano about this and discuss it?
We did.
Not only did we ask why, we used both of our questions on it.
Both. Wait a minute. You guys get, so people who don't follow this, we get everybody gets one question on. So I guess theoretically, if we sent, 18 people down there and NJ Advanced Media would get 18 questions. This is only two of you. Our organization gets 2 questions and you use both of them on this issue. People who are wondering why you never ask about, the bots. We asked only 2 questions.
Only 2 questions allowed.
What were the questions and what were the answers?
So in the preseason, I'm sorry for the preamble here, but in the preseason, Greg said that we're going to be cautious and measured with our approach to the return game.
That is certainly yes.
And it certainly has,
for them.
Certainly,
it's one way to put it. Yes,
certainly lived up to exactly that. So I kind of phrased the question with that.
Mm-hmm.
Why was that? Why is that approach? And is that kind of how it's unfolded? And he went on for about not 5 minutes, a decent length, talking about the evolution of the kick return and how they wanted Ben Black out there at the start because you could obviously see how fast he is.
Mm-hmm.
You could obviously also see his hands in that last game as well. Being a true freshman, it's a risky position. So
did the ball get anywhere near his hands? All right, go on.
So he's talked a lot about kick return. And then I was like, oh my God, he's not going to talk about punt return at all. Did not talk about punt return. So then Brian, who's standing to my right, thankfully pressed him on punt return. So Brian can fill you in on the punt return.
Yeah, again, it's essentially the same answer of managing risk versus reward. He said there's many different ways to skin a cat. And the way Rutgers skins this particular cat is to go for blocks, that's where they are aggressive. And when it comes to returning kicks, they do not want to risk it. They fair catch, and that's just kind of their philosophy. It's just what they do.
Okay.
It's their calculation of risk versus reward, and they find that the risk is not a risk of returning it, maybe fumbling it, is not worth the reward of gaining, 10 yards a pop at best. So.
He did also mention when you have a guy like Aaron Cruikshank or Janarian Grant, those are guys that, of course, are electrifying players, that it is worth the risk. He just feels that the personnel, not necessarily picking on Christian Dremel here, he has great hands and is very steady, can do the job, but he's not going to be a guy that's changing games with his return aspect. He's going to change games by fielding the catch, which is something that did not happen against Nebraska. And now it's become an issue because of a couple of different things that happened in that game. It's at the forefront of people's minds.
Right. Okay. Well, it sounds like one of these things when you hit a certain age in life, you're like, okay, that's it. That's just the way it is. Just check that box and move on. No punt and kick returns. All right. Anything else you want to talk about Wisconsin matchups we haven't covered before I dive into some gimmicky fun stuff here? No.
Well, what I want to say is that I think because of the run game having kind of an advantage in this one, if they are able to impose themselves in the run game, it'll give Ethan Kaliakmanis a chance to kind of bounce back from his rough game at Nebraska, make life a little easier for him. And I think that if you can get that 1-2 punch going again, Rutgers offense could have a good day. And this is a good opportunity for him to, again, bounce back.
Good. I totally agree.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like, to check you have the tickets in your wallet first before you drive 2 hours to the big game. Seriously, you had one job. Now the closest you'll get to the 50-yard line is parking lot D. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
All right, let's play Know Your Opponent. This is an easy one this week, I think. Although, Pat, you did really well last week.
Yeah, 3-0.
So
I was 2-1 the week before that. So
you're rolling. You're 5-1. You were where Rutgers wants to be at the end of this game. So, all right. If you don't know what we do here, I ask 3 questions about the upcoming team, Wisconsin. Important facts. That's the only way we can describe it. So here we go. First question. The Badgers have always been the Badgers. I know you're used to me coming up with bug eaters and other crap like that, but no bug eaters here. They are the Badgers. They've been the Badgers since the 1890s, but they are not called the Badgers because of the nocturnal, angry, medium-sized mammals. Why are they the Badgers? This is good. All right, ready? Well, A, the university's first football coach was a former sheriff who always carried his badge with him in his pocket. B, it was the name used to describe the miners in Wisconsin who lived in burrow-like dwellings in the land throughout the winter months. C, the original football field was located at the base of a small mountain in Wisconsin known as Badger Hill. Or D, no one knows. Why are they the Badgers?
I'm going D.
You're going D? Okay.
I'm going to go with Badger Hill. C.
You're both wrong. Yeah. Love it when I get you. That's the miners. They dug little holes in the side of the hill. The Badgers.
Just like Winnie the Pooh. Badger and Winnie the Pooh.
Like Winnie the Pooh. Yes. Badgers. Yeah.
That's good. That's good.
I thought it would be easier. This one is easy, I think. I don't know this. Covers 2 things he loves. Everyone knows that Ron Dane was Wisconsin's leading rusher, is from New Jersey. But he once held the state record in another sport.
Too easy.
What is it? A, deadlifting. B, discus throwing. C, most 300 games bowled. Or D, pole vaulting.
I'll answer first because Pat knows the answer. So I'll go with B.
You got it.
Yes.
Discus throwing. Yeah. I was going to put shot putting in there, but I'm like, yeah, he did shot put too. Yeah, he was a great track star. Isn't that great?
Huge. Overbrook High School, the legend of Ron Dane. Do you want to hear the Ron Dane story?
Of course. Yes.
I was not around at the time, but I have heard from people covering the Meet of Champions. And at the time when Ron Dane was the best discus thrower in state history, actually launched the discus over a picket fence. Not a picket fence, like a chain link fence. Threw it so far, it went over the fence.
Wow.
Yeah, which is, again,
Kill
I don't know if
anybody?
that's an urban myth now that Ron Dane is who he is or not, but there have been track and field stories of Ron Dane launching a discus over a fence.
That is fantastic. Good story. I love it.
Yeah.
Yes. I think Sam Mattis has since eclipsed that number. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
But barely. Who is he? If you don't know who he is, a New Jersey Olympian last 2 Olympics. So there you go. Some track and field stuff. I know you folks love when we get deep in the track and field on this podcast. All right, final question. Chance to go 2-1 this week for both of you. Dane is first all-time in rushing with 6,397 yards. Jonathan Taylor, another New Jersey guy, as you know, is second with 6,174 yards. But another New Jersey running back is fifth all-time in Wisconsin history with 4,676 yards. Who is it?
You want me just to go before you read the names?
No, I don't want you to go.
All right.
No.
Go ahead.
A, Corey Clement. B, PJ Hill. C, James White. Or D, Anthony Davis.
I cannot believe you didn't put Jalen Berger on this list, just as a joke. That would have been a fun one. I would say A, Corey Clement.
Pat?
He's right. It's Corey
No,
Clement.
he's not right.
What?
He's wrong.
What?
It's not Anthony Davis.
Oh my God.
There's a fourth running. That's why I love
Oh
this
my
one.
God. This is
There's a
supposed to be an
fourth
easy
running
one.
His career, Anthony Davis, Plainfield High's Anthony Davis.
Wow.
Fifth all time, his career high single game performance came against Minnesota in 2002 when he ran for
what is Corey
301
Clement
yards.
fourth? Is Corey
He's
Clement
like
fourth?
10th or something. Yeah. he's
Oh
10th.
wow.
Confidence. I love it.
Wow. I was just gonna shout out Corey Clement.
That's good. You were going to do it. I thought that might be where you're going, but no.
Wow.
4 of the top 4. I saw that and I was like, that's remarkable. When I was looking at the
That's
stats,
really good. It's really good.
Stumped you. There you go. You guys did not know your opponent this week. 2 demerits. We'll try again next week
That's
with
bad.
UCLA.
I
UCLA's
tried
gonna
to
be
champion myself on my New Jersey football knowledge, and
thought it. You thought you had
wow.
it. Mm-hmm. Little trickery. Gotcha.
Yeah, you got me good.
All right. Poor job. Badgers are the most, by the way, just so you know, badgers are the most poorly researched medium-sized mammals in the country. I saw that little tidbit. I have that in my notes. I don't know why, but just in case. They're mean, too. Apparently, badgers are mean.
Well, that's why they're less researched. But how do we even measure that? What is the methodology of this? Feels like it's just Wisconsin throwing out old poor me. No one researches me. Oh my goodness. How would we even get to this? Whatever. Anyway.
And Bucky, by the way, how do you feel about Bucky? I love Bucky. If I'm going with medium-sized angry mascots, and by the way, as mammals as mascots, I'm all for Goldie the Gopher over Bucky. Every day, 7 days a week, twice on Sunday, I'm taking Goldie is just a fun-loving guy. Badger, look at it. What is that? It's weird looking, right?
I love Bucky. I love Bucky. Yeah. I love jump around. I love everything about the ethos around Wisconsin.
On our trip to Wisconsin, he's not lying. He took a picture with every Bucky the Badger statue he could find, and to Wisconsin's credit, there are many Bucky the Badger statues on that campus.
That's great. Good to know. There's only one Scarlet Knight, right? Lots of Bucky the Badgers. All right. Good job. All right. You want to make your picks? Let's make our picks. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Pulled into first place in the spread, which is linked in the
Tie.
counts.
Tie.
I said I pulled into first place. That's still technically correct.
Just want everyone to know.
Yeah.
The king is still in first place.
Boy. I think we're both going in the same direction this week, but we'll see. Based on what you've said, I think we're going in the same direction. I don't know about Pat, though. It's going to be interesting. You want me to go first? I'll go first since I'm in first place for the first time.
Exactly.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah. No, I think this is the game that Rutgers gets back its identity on offense. I think you're going to see Kamanunga run the ball. You're going to feel good. You're going to feel good about protecting the ball. I think that's been the big thing in this series has been turnovers. I just have a feeling that Rutgers is better in that than a team that with Braden Locke. He's kind of put the ball at risk this year. I think they're going to win the turnover battle. Going to run the ball. I think it's going to be not an easy victory, but a comfortable win for the Scarlet Knights. I'm going 30-20. Scarlet Knights get back on the winning track, beat Wisconsin for the first time in a good home atmosphere at noon. You agree, Brian? You with me or you with me?
I almost can't agree more. It's actually incredible that you might have stolen my script. Rutgers, for us to win and beat the spread, only has to win by 3 points. We're going with 2.5. 2.5. I think it's going to be much more than that. I think Rutgers is better than Wisconsin, and especially when Wisconsin is the walking wounded without a quarterback, without its starting running back, without potentially 2 starting wide receivers who are questionable, maybe without their left tackle who exited last week's game early. I'm not sure what his status is. Regardless, Rutgers is coming off of a frustrating loss. They're coming back home against the team they have never beaten. The place should be packed. I don't think losing to Nebraska will demoralize the fan base to the point where they don't show up. And I think Rutgers wants to prove itself coming off that win, bounce back right. So I think they're going to dominate from start to finish. I think they'll be ahead, maybe a score or 2 for most of the game, but they'll keep their foot on the gas through the end of the game, maybe score a late touchdown or 2. I think this is going to be the first Rutgers Big Ten blowout in quite some time. I'm going Rutgers 34, Wisconsin 13.
Wow. Okay.
Pat. All right, I'm going to double down and say that there won't even be 34 points scored in this game.
No. Okay.
I was wildly wrong about my prediction last week, for the record.
What was your pick?
Rutgers 27-24. So I thought it was going to be a high-scoring game. Couldn't have been more wrong.
No.
This one, however, I do feel is more of a physical Big Ten slugfest, to quote Greg Schiano. And I do see 2 teams that are very similar in identity. They are physical up front. They can run the ball well. Wisconsin, even though Chase Masalusi is gone, I still think they have very solid running backs. Locke has been pretty good. Not great, but definitely has done the job. And I think Wisconsin's defense gets a bad rap because of who they played. So I think people are underselling Wisconsin a little bit. I think the spread is pretty accurate. I would, if I was making this line, I would think Rutgers, being at home favored by 2.5 is about right. I think that just shows that this is a pick'em game. I think just like Nebraska last week, was Nebraska a better team than Rutgers? Not really. Was Rutgers better than Washington? Debatable. I think this is going to be another one of those games where it's going to come down to execution, little things, little details, and it's going to be a classic Big Ten game. I see 17-13 could go either way, but I'm going to go with Rutgers to do the things that they've done at home and execute in big moments. So I'm going to take Rutgers to cover, just so I don't fall back further in the standings. But I do see it being a 17-13 low-scoring game and a squeaker at the end. Like, anyone can win it.
Opportunity you could have gained ground on us.
Yeah, it's the risk or reward here, Steve.
Okay, it's early in the season. You still got 7 games here. That's fair. All right, we're all going with Rutgers this week. I'm not surprised by that. We'll see if we're all right. All right, so we don't have any. You got something to say something, right? What?
I just want to talk about the importance of this game, just as far as the big picture. I know we touched on it on Monday.
Yeah.
If you win this game, you almost certainly will beat UCLA, which we've talked about their travel before. I mean, they are globetrotting before this game.
They're the 17th best team in the Big Ten, UCLA. Yep.
That's a very fair point. And again, not only are they not good, they are going to be exhausted when they get to Piscataway. It's going to be a noon kickoff, so it's 9 a.m. their time. They're coming off of, they're going to Penn State and coming back home and going to Rutgers in the span of 2 weeks. Just an insane schedule. So I think we can all chalk that up as a win, because if they don't win that game, that the season isn't even worth talking about. It's going completely down the drain. If you beat Wisconsin, you're going to enter the bye week 6-1. You're in a bowl game. Mm-hmm. You are not playing with house money, because I think people want better than 6-6, but you get that monkey off your back and you get to kind of move on to the next challenges ahead.
Yep.
You lose this game to Wisconsin, you're 4-2, meaning if you want to get to that 9-win threshold that makes this a special season, or even the 8-win threshold, you have to win 4 of your last 6 games. You have to go 4-2 the rest of the way. And the schedule at the back half is much more difficult than the beginning when you're playing Howard and Akron, right? So I think this is going to be a pivot point for Rutgers in whether they can kind of get their season back on tracks to be special versus fighting for your life in the back half of the season to live up to expectations preseason.
Yep. It is the difference between having a shot at the Citrus Bowl and picking your baseball stadium on Christmas week. That's kind of where it's at, I think. Yeah. Right.
And in the intangible department too, it's just an example of, is this program at a point, Greg Schiano talked about they're not being there yet last year, as Pat mentioned. Are they at the point there where they can get a good Big Ten team to come to your home in a game you're favored in? Can you win? Right? Like, is Rutgers at a point where they win these games? And I think they are. I do, but I think they have to prove it. And one really quick thing. Ethan Kaliakmanis grew up an hour from Madison. It's the closest Big Ten school to his hometown. I asked him, in hindsight, a pretty foolish question. I asked him, have you ever been to a Wisconsin game growing up? Did you root for the Badgers? And he gave me a one-word answer. No. And I should have realized this because he went to Minnesota, which is Wisconsin's biggest rival. Of course, he wouldn't root for the Badgers. But in case anyone was curious,
okay,
I don't think he likes the Badgers.
Good. He doesn't hate the Badgers as much as he hates, I'm sure, the game later in the schedule when they play Minnesota. This will be fascinating. But yeah, good to know. All right, we don't have any questions we have to answer from mail this week. But did you guys see we got some hate mail?
I did.
This is exciting. Specifically, when I say we, I mean Brian and I. You were kind of left off the hate mail, which was very funny. And it's all about our discussion of all things that you never know what people are going to get angry about. Our discussion about Vanderbilt, where Brian and I were kind of fired up that Rutgers played. My point wasn't that Rutgers have played all these games against these teams, didn't have one of these moments. Here's the email tweet, actually. It says, I don't think they understand being us, college football enough. Maybe Lanny does. I love that. Maybe Lanny does. Give you maybe Lanny does. We wouldn't trade place with Vanderbilt for a second, except maybe in a job interview. Very funny. You need to know this Pavia history. We wouldn't be storming. We should be past storming the field, growing incrementally, which was your point, Pat. Which I get it
exactly.
Yeah, but I will say this: I don't think either Brian and I were saying, "Oh, you guys wish you were Vanderbilt." I think we were just saying that they missed that point in their history when they were bad for a lot of years. They had all these games where one win against any of these teams would have changed a season, and they didn't get one. That's the point I was making. They didn't get to throw the goalposts in the river. They've beaten Wisconsin in 2000, whatever year they played, would have been huge. Now it's not. Now it's not huge because they're on the same level. That was the point I was making, Brian. I don't know if that was the point you were making.
Well, a few things. I still think if Rutgers beats a top 10 team at home, it's worth storming the field. Rutgers is above beating a top 10 team now. Like that's a ludicrous idea to me. I still think if Rutgers beats number 1 Alabama, they're going to storm.
Of course, right? Yes,
right. 2, I understand the idea of incremental progress. That's what every coach says they want to do, and in an ideal world, that is how you build a program. You continue to get better every year. That does not prohibit you from beating good teams ahead of schedule. A lot of these teams, Sam Pittman was going to get fired at Arkansas, and he beats number 4 Tennessee, right? Like the direction of the program is irrelevant. When you play a really good team, you have the opportunity to beat them, and Rutgers has had many opportunities to beat them, albeit during maybe their worst point in the past 50 years, but they never even came close. My point is that Rutgers has not had one of those wins in a long time. I saw in that tweet thread, someone said, what about Louisville? You mean in 2006, where we're reaching the 20th anniversary in 2 years? It feels like we're past the point of expiration of that being a win you could point to. Like, I am sick of hearing about Louisville. I'm sure everyone is sick about hearing about Louisville because, yes, it's a great win. It happened 18 years ago. If it was born that day, it would be old enough to go to the war. It could join the army. It could drink in Europe. It's old. Move on. Rutgers needs, and listen, that's again, I mentioned this live podcast. That's the issue with this schedule. As good as it is that it's easy, you don't have the opportunity with the best team you've had in the Big Ten era to get that signature win. That's my entire point. And would you trade places with Andy? No, most days of the year, no. Would you trade places with Andy on Saturday? Probably, because a win over the number 1 team in the country is infinitely more worthwhile, more valuable to a program than going 7-5. It's not even close.
Yeah, I can see that. You might be right. Yeah, you get a good point. Totally. Yep.
Well, tell me, what's more valuable in recruiting? You're going to sell a win over a depleted Miami team in the Pinstripe Bowl, or a win over number 1 Alabama, where
absolutely
you have photos of the field, you have photos of kids walking down Broadway with the goalpost, ruining bachelorette parties. Like, one of them is very clearly more valuable than the other, and that's just kind of my point. Like,
right? Yep. The other angry hate mail from Brian on Twitter. We followed our account, followed Brian after this because it was a good email. It made me laugh. These people genuinely do not know anything about football and are constantly trying to make stories that don't exist because they're not good at their jobs. They're glorified paparazzi. NJ.com is a bunch of hacks. And then, you did suck. But would have won it if it was reffed fairly. I love it. And after all those are like making this up. They're a bunch of glorified hack. They don't get football. Okay, all right. We did suck. Like, it's just cracked me up.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, I just love it. It's good stuff. All right, so we touched the nerve last week. What can I tell you? We're there.
It means we made it. When you have haters, when you know you made it.
You hate it.
So.
Absolutely haterade. All right, what else we got? Anything going on in the world, the greater world here of college, Rutgers, Piscataway, soccer, field hockey? No.
By the time this podcast goes up, the Big Ten will release tip times for all the games. Just a couple of quick notes. One Big Ten plus game. One. The last 10 years has been 7 Big Ten plus games.
Yeah.
One.
Does that mean I can cancel my Paramount Plus account? What is it? Do I have?
Well, I mean, Big Ten Plus is different, but do not cancel your Peacock account because there will be, I believe, 6 Peacock games.
Right.
Oh, wow.
And
okay.
stack your Keurig because there will be 4, 5, or 6. I can't remember the number off the top of my head. Games tipped off after 8:30 or later.
Oh my God.
2 in Vegas.
I don't do well with that.
There's a lot.
Yeah.
You want primetime players? You're gonna play in primetime slots, baby.
Man,
be up at midnight writing columns about Rutgers basketball. And then just a couple more things. Princeton game is at noon. Seton Hall game is at 3.
Okay, good. Right. So,
Have you seen Project Rudy?
I have. What do you guys think about this? This is kind of fascinating. I've got mixed emotions. What do you think?
Yeah.
If you don't know explain what it is. People don't know what it is.
It's just basically everything that people have theorized for the last couple of years that the Big Ten and SEC are just going to become 2 giant superpowers and absorb everyone else, and play under this umbrella of new college football, which is infused by the private sector as well, to bring in more money, even more money to fund this whole thing, even more money to fund this whole thing. So, I'm as we were talking about today, I'm kind of just like over but this is great reporting by Ross Dellinger and at Yahoo to say that they're at the point where they're presenting this to athletic directors. They're sitting down in meetings. Like this is tangible, right? But my thing is like I'm so sick of hearing about what's next. I just trying to live in the moment and just do my job on Wisconsin this week. And I'm sorry for saying that.
You're just gonna chop. You're just gonna chop Wisconsin. You're not worried about Project Rudy. Good job.
That's it.
You brought it up.
I know.
Had spending too much time in Piscataway. The chop mentality.
Oh my God.
The only thing I like about it is the idea of relegation and promotion. I love that. Obviously, I think it's cool. It makes being a team that's 4-6 a fun team to watch in the last 2 games of the season because you're clawing, scratching to stay in tier 1 or tier 2 or whatever they're calling these things. I'm with Pat. I am so sick about conference realignment and super leagues and NIL and transfer portal. Just play the games. I don't care about anything else. And I think every other fan feels the same way. Just give me the games on Saturdays. Make them fun games. Keep the essence of the sport alive and get all that private equity stuff out of my face.
I disagree. I think people are fascinated by this stuff and have been for years. They love the realignment stuff. So I'm going to disagree that people there's no appetite for it. My question is why would the Big Ten and the SEC, which already has the bigger share of this, invite the have-nots to this party? And how are they going to do it financially? That's my question. I'm like, I just don't, what's in it for Rutgers? Like I looked at the breakdown where Rutgers would be like in some of this hypothetical world, they would be in a division with, it looked like the big East all over again. Pittsburgh, West Virginia, Syracuse. They don't want that. Greg Schiano doesn't want. I know. I've never talked to him about it, but I'm sure if you hooked him up to the lie detector test and said, "Oh, here's your new division," he'd be like, "Get this out of my face." And I'm not saying that's not going to go through because obviously Rutgers isn't going to be the one who has the last vote here. But I don't know. To me, I do wonder about what's in it for the Big Ten and SEC.
Money.
more money. So you think that it will be an equal share in 20 years that they're going to give? Eventually, Vanderbilt's going to get the same amount of money as Rutgers. They're going to, the relegation is going to be what makes it decide. I mean, I've got some good questions about that.
Salary cap, yeah.
Salary cap.
All fair points. The answer to all of your questions is always more money. That is the answer to every question when you ask why are they doing it. More money. More money. And not to the players, not to the schools, not to the programs, to the pockets of the 6 or 7 bigwigs that lead all this stuff, that are bringing the sport down the drain so they can have an extra couple $1 million to buy a 7th house in the Hamptons and ruin beautiful afternoons like the ones that happened last Saturday in Nashville for all the common folk who love college football. But that's true for every industry in this country and in this world. I digress.
Man, little anti-capitalism rant to end the rant. I love it. All right. Should we shut up there, Pat? You got anything else? No. All right.
Wrap it up.
We'll be back. I do want to say to all of our listeners, I know there are a few in the Florida area. Good luck with Milton. We wish you the best. Hope that storm is not as bad as it looks up here on television. We'll be thinking of you. We'll be in Piscataway to watch a little Wisconsin Rutgers, and then we'll be back on Monday to talk about it. So see you then.
Thank you for listening to the Rutgers Rant. To participate in the conversation and receive live updates about the Scarlet Knights directly to your phone, sign up at NJ.com/insider.